Pharrell said he didn't sample. He said he didn't sample the record.
It don't sound like he did. It sounded like he had the idea of the Marvin Gaye song.
Yes,
and tried to get the same exact sounds that Marvin and them used.
Yes.
And made the beat his way.
Right.
And he must have loved that song.
Well, Robin Thicke, he in the interview.
Pharrell, I'm talking about.
No,
he must have loved the Marvin song.
Yeah, but
to make the beat similar. But I don't hear. Actually, you can hear a sample. If your ear is good, you'll hear a sample in the beat. He did not sample the song.
You gonna learn today.
1, 2, 3.
Let's go.
Are you ready?
This ain't the radio.
Are you ready?
Let's go. The Street Report Podcast.
He raps for the DMV to the fullest.
Hosted by Easy.
Mr. President.
It is great to talk to you.
Raw and uncut.
I let your boys, it's Jay-Z.
DJ Khaled.
What up, though? It's your boy Big Snoop, Double G. Rocking out with my nephew, Easy Street.
Easy Street.
The Street Report Podcast. Hosted by Easy.
The Street Report is a podcast that primarily focuses on African American culture and a whole lot more. Make sure you subscribe to The Street Report wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it be on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher. Please hit that button and subscribe. I'll be dropping a brand new podcast every week. You might want to turn on your notifications. Also follow @EasyStreet on Twitter and Instagram. The official website for The Street Report is EasyStreetShow.com.
What's up?
Hey Camille. Hey Sharice, how you doing?
Good.
All right. You know, today's show, I've been wanting to do this for a while because of the fact that, you know, we love to support our artists and we love to arm our artists with information about the music industry and what's, you know, correct and how to be able to make great music and then also to do it the right way. And so we wanted to talk about sampling music and production, the right things to do and the wrong things to do, something for the artist to know, kind of like a blueprint, if you will, to help you understand some of the things, because nowadays we hear so much music out there that sounds the same, and a lot of times young artists, they don't know, young producers don't know what is right, what they can do and what they can't do, and what's legal and what's not legal, and sometimes they get into trouble. So after today, we are going to draw a line in the sand, so to speak, and you will understand everything you need to know about production, or at least some of it. In the studio, Judah on the beats from the DMV area.
What's up, DMV?
Welcome back to the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah.
All right, you've been producing for a while.
Yes, indeed.
All right, you got a couple records under your belt, and you did some production for Nas just recently on his album Life Is Good, or one of his singles.
Well, yeah, did the official remix, one of the remixes with Nas and Amy Winehouse, and then we just did some records for AZ. He's doing Do or Die 2, coming back. Just got back in the studio with Wale again, so we kind of connected back again and getting back and doing some records. Did a record for Rita Ora, which has a sample, so I did a record for her recently, and just working, man. London EMI, that's what I'm signed to, so we just working and just having fun, you know.
All right, London EMI in the building. Also here, a lady that's been on our show in the past, JAIA Thomas. She is entertainment attorney, DC and LA, correct?
Correct.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
All right. Now, I'm so glad that we have you on this show because, you know, that kind of like puts us all in line in regards to what's correct and what's not. I want to start off with this question for you. What are some of the common things that artists do that put them in harm's way from a legal aspect of producing music?
I would say the biggest thing artists do that puts them in harm's way and, you know, runs them in the risk of being filed with a lawsuit or any type of legal action is actually sampling music, not getting the proper licensing that they need to get to copy or borrow somebody else's music.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you represent people to help them get those samples cleared or what?
Correct. I represent artists that help them get the proper licenses that they need from publishers and record labels and any other rights owners.
Okay, so tell us about the process of getting a sample cleared from beginning to end. Say Judah produces a song and you're his attorney and you like the record a lot and it has a sample in it. What do you do next?
Okay. So the first thing, I want to kind of break it down. There are usually two types of licenses that an artist needs. The first one is a synchronization license, and the other one is a master use license. The master use license is for the actual recording. So if you're planning on taking somebody else's sound recording and putting it into your music, you would need a master use license, which is obtained from a record label. The other type of license, a synchronization license, you would obtain from the publisher. And that license encompasses the kind of the composition. So we're talking about the lyrics of the song, the notes, and things like that. So those are two separate type of licenses that an artist would need. So the first step is we find out who owns these rights, you know? So if we want to sample, let's say, the new Rihanna song, we would need to find out who is the publisher of that song, and we need to find out under what record label is that song under. Then we would contact the record label and the publisher, and we have to provide them with certain information, such as how much of the song are we planning on using, you know, how many seconds, how many minutes, and how do we plan to incorporate that song into, you know, our song. So we kind of outline all of that information in kind of a query letter that we would send to the publisher and the record label, and then we wait to hear back from them. You know, we wait to hear back if it's a yay or a nay. And then if it's a yes, then, you know, I go on to negotiate the price for the license. And everything is negotiable. So there aren't really any standard rates or anything like that. It's kind of a back and forth that we do with the label and the publisher to come up with kind of a flat fee for the artist to obtain the license.
Mm-hmm. So correct me if I'm wrong. So the more you sample, the more you pay, right?
Correct. Yes. Wow. The more you sample, the more you pay, and the more popular. You know, if you're looking to sample a song that's number 1 on the Billboard charts right now, that's going to be a lot more popular. I mean, a lot more expensive than a song that's number 500 on the Billboard charts. So yes.
Mm-hmm. And also in regards to publishing, sometimes the publishing is not owned by a record label, correct?
Correct. Correct. Sometimes it's not owned by a record label. And the other thing is that I always tell artists, when you're obtaining these rights, sometimes they try to do it on their own. And when you're obtaining the rights, you just want to make sure, because you're going to end up having to sign an agreement with these people. And you want to make sure that you're signing the agreement with the correct person. So you want to have a clause in there stating that the agreement becomes null and void, you know, if this person doesn't actually own the rights, you know, if we find out they don't own 100% of those rights, or they're not the right party even to enter into this agreement with. If that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. It really does.
This is Sharice. I wanted to ask you, as the lawyer and the legal expert on this matter, for a new artist who has maybe a lower budget and doesn't necessarily have the resources for like legal expertise, they're trying to figure out their marketing budget and everything that it takes to be a new artist, how would you recommend them becoming savvy in the way of the law, or, you know, how would they be able to necessarily afford something that seems so important as far as like legal expertise on how to handle matters?
Good question. So there are a lot of different organizations out there for artists who maybe, you know, can't afford an attorney. In the DC area, there's the Washington Area Lawyer for the Arts, and they provide free legal counsel for artists in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And then there's always, you know, Google research, things like that. But I mean, in every city, in every major city, in the LA, New York, DC market, there are organizations where there are attorneys who will provide free legal advice for artists who can't afford an actual lawyer.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Are you one of them?
Yes. Under the organization, under the heading of, yes, the organization.
Wow, why would you do that?
Pro bono. Pro bono hours.
Wow, that's incredible. I need to get a whole list of those, because, I mean, think about it. Young people that are listening to the show, or young producers that don't know that I even exist. Mm-hmm. So is there like a listing online? Is there an organization? Is there a website or something?
There isn't like a one-stop shop listing. Mm-hmm. Like I said, for the DC area, it's the Washington Area Lawyer for the Arts. So you can just Google that, and they have a pretty comprehensive website. But there's not a one-stop shop for like every single city. So in California, it's the California Lawyer for the Arts. And so those are kind of like the two main organizations.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, Judah, as a producer,
right?
Think about what you just heard her say, and do you have a lawyer or someone that handles your work like that as well?
Yeah, I have a lawyer. Of course, the label have their lawyers, and I have my lawyer, and they meet and figure things out. I kind of stay out of it. You know what I mean?
Oh, really? Why?
Yeah, because I just want to create. You know what I mean? You pay somebody to take care of your legal business for you, and as an artist, you just want to create. So, you know, I give them the information up front, like what I sampled, the artist. I even give them the record itself so they can have all the information and they can do what they need to do.
You give them the record that you sampled or the record that you produced?
Record that I sampled, produced, and everything so they can have all the information and do what they need to do to clear whatever or talk to the label. But most of the time, me being signed to a publishing situation at a label, you know, it's a little different because they do a lot of the clearing and stuff because, you know, they bring me in for remixes like the Amy Winehouse and Nas remix. They cleared all that before we even touched everything because they brought us in to produce it.
Right.
So, you know, it just depends on the situation, but I have an attorney that does all that stuff.
So on that particular remix that you did with Nas and Amy Winehouse, are you saying that they provided to you all the elements of the song and they wanted you to put them together and produce it? Right. So what they did was they cleared with the company, the parent label, all the rights for it. Mm-hmm. They even gave me the masters. So you were able to get masters without, you know, doing the correct business. So they gave us the masters so we had the masters to work with. So they did all that up front, and then, you know, I just got paid what I got paid. But, you know, they cleared all that because they didn't want the issue, you know, of having to deal with that, especially at, you know, the legal ramifications because she just passed away. So, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So they did all that up front. Right. So, and correct me if I'm wrong. So you would have to, they would have to deal with with Nas's label and also Amy Winehouse's label too, of who owned the publishing of the song that she, well, her vocals. Right. So what happened was they gave us the masters. We were to create beats out of her songs for Nas. Right. So they gave us the masters to her beats, her vocals, and everything. So they cleared all that prior, and then they said, which one you want? It's all cleared. So we just come in, choose what we want, take the file, and do what we want to do. But that was all cleared up before we came in. Right, so they already knew what they wanted. They said, here's all the project material. Was already planned out. So, you know, they already handled the business. It wouldn't have been proper business etiquette for us they hire us to do a remix, but yet we got to clear the sample. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So they knew what they were doing out the gate. Okay, so nowadays a lot of times these individuals that are allowing individuals like you to produce these songs, they already know what they want and they have everything in the clear, so they don't have to deal with the legal issues down the line. Is that what you're saying? Right. So it's indie labels out here that come and pay me to do records for them, but they already know the records they want to sample or whatever, or they want to remix, and they already clear it out the gate. You know what I mean? And then just give us the files because it would have been probably more costly on the back end for us to do what we want to do, not clear samples, opposed to them just up front saying, okay, we went to a clearinghouse or got the license for this and got it all done. And here, you choose what you want, remix it, and let's work.
Yes, this question is for JAIA, and I think Judah can probably chime in if he has any input as well. So I remember reading a while back that Jay-Z was interested in doing some samples using Sade's music, and she refused him. And he was not able, you know, to sort of move forward with that creative process because of that. How often does that happen? And is there any way around it? If, you know, or if the artist says no, is the deal over? Can you go around them to a publisher or their label? How does that work?
Sometimes it really depends on how everything was structured with that particular artist. But usually, you know, if it's a publisher or the record label or even the artist who says no, usually a no means no.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
There are some exceptions under copyright laws, under, for instance, fair use exceptions. So, you know, if you're making a parody of a particular song or something like that, then sometimes it's okay not to have to, you know, clear the copywriter to obtain a license. But for the most part, if it's a no, it's a no.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when I first started making music, I had a couple older heads that were making beats. They gave me a list of people to stay away from when sampling because you couldn't get it cleared. Like who? Like Pink Floyd, Barry White, Prince.
Wow.
Yeah, it was some a long list, and I don't even sample them because it's pointless. But one thing that I do know happens a lot in music. Artists may say, no, you can't use my music, but at the end of the day, a lot of those artists don't even own their publishing, or own their rights to their music, and somebody may have bought it 100%, just outright bought it, and they can't even tell you not to use it because they don't own it anymore.
I think that happened with Trouble Funk.
Right, so you would have to go to whoever owns it because some artists may not even own the records anymore.
They sold the publishing, right?
Sold the publishing, and they, you got to go to who owns the publishing. So, I mean, it's just, out of respect as another artist, if an artist told me no, I wouldn't do it. But somebody that was really, greedy or in their business like that, they would say, well, you don't even own it, I'm still going to use it. Or then you just do what Pharrell did and interpolate.
Uh-oh. Here we go. Blurred lines. As a matter of fact, we have Pete Rock, legendary producer Pete Rock from Pete Rock and CL Smooth on the show. On this show, he'll talk about the whole blurred lines thing in a little bit too. Go ahead, Sharice.
I have a question for JAIA. I wanted to know, how does YouTube play into this discussion? Because a lot of times you'll see people might have something up on YouTube and then you might go back and find it and says this has been removed for like copyright or infringement reasons. How is that related to this discussion of like publishing and sampling?
Yeah, YouTube is kind of tricky right now. A lot of times, content will be taken down if that artist is, possibly making a commercial profit off YouTube. So if they have their video up on YouTube and there are commercials, being played in conjunction with their video, that becomes a problem because, they're going to be receiving compensation. And the artist is saying, well, if you're getting compensation off my song, where's my cut? So usually that's the instance under which, a song would be taken down for copyright infringement purposes. But if someone's just putting something up, if I just put something up today, I'm not making any type of profit off of it,
Like if I sing a Anita Baker cover. Not that I sing Anita
Why would
Baker,
you?
but
I looked at her like, why would you do that? Caught up in your rapture of love.
Thank you.
I just wanted to go over this because I hear songs all the time that young artists bring to me that contain these samples, and they don't get the clearance at all. They're not really even concerned about the clearance, but especially in the go-go community. Yeah. How do they get away with that? Do you know? How do they get away with that? I mean, go-go is really based off of producing cover songs. How do they do it when not ended up getting sued?
I mean, one thing I think the artists that they're sampling or putting in their songs, they don't even, go-go is not even, it's sad, but it's not even on the radar nationally enough. And a lot of those bands, and so the artists that they're sampling or redoing their songs, they don't know they're doing that. So, that's really just a regional thing. You know what I mean? Now, if a record really blow up and go places like UCB record, I forgot the name of it, but that was kind of that.
Sexy Lady.
Yeah, Sexy Lady. That was like that had like a piece of a record or parts of a record in it from another artist. So it's really about the reach that it has. That was an interpolation itself. You know what I mean, of a song that was already out. So if the record blow up, then you're gonna have to break bread. But if it's not, and it's just a regional thing, they don't know, man, you rock out and do what you do.
I think it was a record, Don't Disturb This Groove. Right. It was that part. Right. I remember that.
They took the chords, you know what I mean? Took the chords and took everything.
Yeah.
And that record, you'll go to California. You go to California, you'll hear that record. You'll go to Florida, you go to Georgia, you hear that record. And it's a big record. A lot of people don't know, but it was a pretty big record.
The System, that was the name of the group.
And they probably never had that issue, but it was a big record. So
JAIA, I have this song. It's hot. Radio wants to play it, but it has a sample in it that I didn't get cleared. What do I do?
Don't do it. I would definitely say don't have them play it, because you definitely run the risk of that artist, whoever you sampled, you have run the risk of them filing a lawsuit against you. So I always say it's better to be safe than sorry. Get the license, get the clearance. Okay, he disagrees.
Judah says no. Go ahead, Judah.
I'm gonna tell you why I disagree. I mean, she's right for the most part, but I like to. I'm a businessman. I got a degree in business, right? So I always look at calculated risk. So if I got a hot record, I think it's dope, and it got a sample, and I ain't clear it, and then it may become a hit, and it may give me extra exposure to get a deal or get a situation. I'm gonna take that risk and just pay what I gotta pay. But I've already, got out there, and I got something out of it. So I'm all about calculated risk. If it's no, it's not gonna go any further, and it's going, I'm gonna take a loss, then I'm not gonna do it. But I mean, you just gotta depend on how you feel about it.
JAIA, the attorney in you, says
no. Definitely not. And I'm glad he has a business degree and I have my law degree. But I would say no, because a lot of these lawsuits get really expensive. I mean, you're looking at $4 million lawsuits, $5 million lawsuits. So, that's great. Your song played on the radio and it got some hits and some people liked it. But is it worth possibly going to jail or, paying $5 million, in damages? I don't think so.
Well,
I'm not talking about one or two plays. I'm talking about if I could get a deal, I can get a deal off of it, or it's gonna blow up to the point where it's gonna change my life. I'm gonna pay that money. Dr. Dre did the same thing. Rocker producers did the same exact thing, and they had hits. They didn't keep the money they made, but it set them up for the next record that was probably all original, and they got all the publishing. And so it's all about placement, where it's gonna put me at the end of the day. If I'm gonna take a huge loss, I ain't gonna do it. But if it's gonna help me out and get me in a situation to release something else later on, I'm gonna do it.
Okay,
I'm just trying to make sure you guys don't go to jail.
One more rebuttal. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
You're trying to keep us out of jail,
I'm just trying to keep you guys out of jail. So you can follow his advice or you can follow my advice.
Follow her advice.
And stay free.
But who gets the lawsuit? I want to understand the legal ramifications of this. So does Easy get the lawsuit?
No.
The radio station?
Easy does not.
You know what I mean? Like who?
The person who actually sampled.
Okay.
So it would be the artist.
Okay. So you straight, Easy. You can play it.
I have a question along those lines, and this is Camille. JAIA, so if an artist in fact has already done the creative work and they've put this song out and they haven't gotten the clearance, is there any way to fix it? Can they hire you and go back and actually do the legwork that needed to be done in the first place and then allow the radio station to play that song free and clear?
Definitely, and that happens with a lot of artists. They don't get the clearances ahead of time, so they have an attorney come in later to kind of clean everything up.
Okay.
And so that kind of actually happened with Diddy's song, I'll Be Missing You. He didn't get the clearance, from, right. It was a hit. So he didn't get any of the proper clearances ahead of time. So when the song came out and became a hit, it became a legal problem, and he had, attorneys on board to help clean everything up. And he ended up having to pay, I think, maybe like $5 million, $4 million to Sting for, the license for that song. But that happens all the time. I mean, a lot of artists don't get the proper clearances ahead of time. But I always recommend do it ahead of time because you'll end up having to pay a lot more if you wait until after the fact.
That's surprising because I would think, artists of a certain caliber would know what the proper steps are. So that happens more often than we think.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Exactly.
Diddy's faced tons of lawsuits in regards to sampling.
But you know what? Diddy knows better, though.
He does.
He does know better, and he knows the law. He knows what he's doing.
Calculated risk.
And he's rolling the dice. You said that you could do time. Can you go to jail for sampling someone's record illegally?
It depends. I mean, it falls under copyright infringement law.
You already put Judah in jail. I mean, you want to go to jail? Go ahead and sample to your heart's desire.
I mean, the main legal ramifications are usually monetary fines that you're going to face, but also the court can stop, the sale of your record. So I know for Biggie's "Ready to Die," they had sampled an Ohio Player song for that song, and they didn't get the proper clearances for it. So it went to court. The owners of the Ohio Player song went to court. And filed a lawsuit against Diddy because he was the one who produced the song. And the court not only, I think made Diddy pay like a $5 million fine, but also stopped the sale of all of Biggie's Ready to Die songs.
The whole
for,
album or just...
No, for a certain amount of time. Okay. So, the judge stopped, all sale of the song. No radio stations could play the song. No one could download the song for a certain amount of time, I think until that fine was paid by Diddy or something along those lines. So those are usually the main ramifications, monetary fine, and the court can also stop the sale of, your music if you are breaking the law.
So how your players wasn't playing.
They were not playing. And Judah as a producer over here, he's like, what is this lady talking about? Man, she is all...
He's an artist and he's sensitive about his dish.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. Like, I started out sampling in D.C. where a lot of people were doing a lot of band stuff. I started out sampling because I didn't know how to play instruments. But then, my 20s, I just was sampling, buying records, traveling, buying records, sampling. But then it got to a point where I said I want to stop sampling and I want to be able to play what I've been sampling or been hearing. So it's a natural progression as a producer. I still sample for inspiration, but sometimes you got to turn those samples into, true musicianship and learn how to play it yourself. You know what I mean? Even if I want to interpolate what I hear, you know what I mean? So the sampling always going to be around. It's just, you get it cleared, and if you can't get it cleared, there's ways around it to play it, add another note, do this and that, boom, 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 boom. But, that's what lawyers are for, so.
Right. Thank you, JAIA Thomas, entertainment lawyer. I want to talk about royalties, too, because I think that, young producers, they don't know how the royalties operate. And that would be your expertise. Do you deal with that at all, or how does the royalties program, if you will, operate as far as when you produce a record?
I deal with royalties a little bit, but not a ton. So I don't know if Judah may be better able to speak on that.
So what is it again?
How does it operate? The whole system. You produce a record. You cleared the sample. Now it's time to get paid. Somebody plays the record. How do you get paid?
I mean, I'm signed with a rights organization, ASCAP BMI first and foremost, and I have my own publishing company. I don't have anybody administer my publishing for me. I collect my publishing for myself. So that's the first part. Step up, sign up to a performance rights organization and know how that works. You know what I mean? Know when they distribute royalties annually, semi-annually, however they do it. Figure that out, and then it's set rates for certain things and things like that. So it's really just about being on your business, keeping track, and knowing what work you got out there, and knowing when you should be getting something coming in, and doing the math and double checking it. You know what I mean? So prime example, I did a record on Saints Row, and it sold 2.8 million copies, and so how mine was set up, and it may be different for every other producer or artist on there, but for a certain time I got a certain amount of money, and then as time went on and they sold more, my royalty went down according to the units that they sold. So it's just different ways things, the business is set up, where you may get a lot of royalties, you may not. It just depends on how it's structured and set up. But for me, I just collect everything. I do the math, see what work I got out there, see how it's going, see when it's been being played, and just keeping up on it.
Mm-hmm. So when you mean keeping up, you mean keeping up on the radio spins, and also say if your song gets played on Pandora too.
Right. So you actually sign up and license your music to be played on those sites.
Right.
So where it's at. Pandora, Slacker, Songs, all these different things, they license your music from you so they can play it on there, and where it's at. So if you don't see a check from Songs and you licensed it 2 years ago, something going on. Either they're not playing it, or something that hasn't happened. And some deals, it may be different, where they may pay you up front to use it, or it may be residuals off of it. It all depends on what your lawyer or what y'all work out with whoever you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Okay, JAIA, I have a question for you. I have a hot-ass record. Everyone loves this song.
I bet.
And the sample is cleared. And the radio station's playing this song. and record labels start knocking at my door saying, hey, look, man, we want to put you on, but we want your publishing. What do you tell that artist?
Good question. I try to recommend that artists keep as much of their publishing as possible. I try to, I mean, it's hard because, when artists, especially a hungry new artist, is on the verge of signing with a label, they'll take any type of deal, they'll almost sell their soul. Right, exactly. Right. Not even reading the contract.
That makes me, that always reminds me of the Third Base video for back in the day. I think a Pop Goes the Weasel or the Gas Face when they show you that in a video.
Definitely.
Or when I sign, and you sign your whole record deal for like a pack of Newports or something like that.
Exactly. I mean, so a lot of people will just give away anything just to be signed to a label, but if possible, I always recommend fight hard to try to keep, as many rights as possible, including your publishing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, Judah, and I'm not asking you to speak for Jay-Z and Kanye West, but, well, everyone pretty much knows, if you know anything about production, they own their publishing, don't they?
I mean,
Kanye West owns his publishing, doesn't he?
I'm pretty sure he probably owns majority of it, just the way type of person he is. But
you can sell percentages of it? Can you say,
I mean, no, it's what you negotiate. You're only worth what you negotiate, or whatever you're doing. So, I mean, I can't really speak on that situation. I know, I kind of look at, like I say, it's all a calculated risk, and I also look at what I'm doing with a certain business entity or label or whatever. But I mean, I'm pretty sure that they own a good chunk of their publishing. Just the type of pull they have and the respect and the level where they at. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure they own a large.
JAIA, do you know anything about that? As far as those bigger artists, do they own their publishing? Do they fight for it?
Yeah, most of them do. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some artists out there. Some artists out there right now that don't own none of their publishing. And we dance to them, we go see their shows, and they don't own none of their publishing.
There are plenty of movies, again, about a movie. It makes me think about that movie, Frankie Lyman, the story of
Why Do Fools Fall in
Love?
Why
Do Fools Fall in Love? It's really about this. There were the three wives in the movie, I believe Vivica Fox and the other two, Halle Berry was in the film, and then he had three wives, and the label actually owned the record, but the publishing got switched to another person. It was just
messy.
It was messy because they wanted to be able to get the rights to the royalties, but they couldn't because these things had changed hands.
Right. So let me just throw something out there. So say I'm a producer and I got these 3-4 women in a group and we doing a record, and they want to, I got a record, or really I got 4 records that we gonna do. And I say, okay, I'm going to write the songs, I'm going to produce the songs. All you got to do is sing the parts that I give you. Then I could really Suge Knight them and be like, I'm getting 90% of this publishing, or I'm getting 95% of the publishing. You see what I'm saying?
Hey, man, don't say his name on this show, man.
So
I'm afraid of Suge Knight.
Me too. Look, I got nervous.
You know what I mean? So... Right, so at the end of the day, that's how things happen. So a lot of artists that you hear, the producer that signed them or whatever, if they had a production deal or they got signed straight to a label, like I could really say, all right, I'm getting 95% of this publishing, y'all get 5%, y'all split that up, and that's how we gonna roll. And I'm gonna make it a hit, and it may be a hit, but they're not making no money. At the end, so it's all about what you negotiate and who's doing the business with. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, so a lot of these artists that we hear, they not really, whoever produced that record, whether it be a big producer and whoever said, okay, I'm gonna hook this producer up with this artist and y'all gonna do this, you may not get no publishing. You know what I mean?
Like the Dream. Isn't that what happened to the Dream Girls a little bit?
I'm not sure.
The background. Okay,
it had, the exploitation of artists in the music industry, especially in African American community, is well documented.
You see it a lot on Unsung.
I mean, so many people have been taken advantage of, and it's very sad. Very sad. One of the things that brought me to sadness was this whole beef between the Marvin Gaye family and Robin Thicke, T.I., and Pharrell in the production of the song Blurred Lines. We have Pete Rock on the show next. for Easy Street alongside Trending with Easy Crew, JAIA. Thomas, entertainment lawyer. Also, Judah on the beat in the building. And Pete Rock on the show. And I have to ask you this, Pete. There is a case right now between Robin Thicke, T.I., Pharrell, and the family of one of your favorite artists, Marvin Gaye, for the sample or whatever you want to call it for the Blurred Line. I don't even know if it's a sample. It's not really a
Give It Up song.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you were the judge in that case, who would you rule for?
I have to really fully understand the case first.
I was dreaming about this question, by the way. I was like, I have to ask Pete
I
this question.
really
as a
have
producer.
to understand the whole situation. I can't just pick someone unless I know what's going on.
Right.
To see who I can lean on more. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. From what I've heard about the case, they said that, well, Pharrell said he didn't sample. He said he didn't sample the record.
It don't sound like he did. It sounded like he had the idea of the Marvin Gaye song.
Yes, and
tried to get the same exact sounds that Marvin and them used.
Yes.
And made the beat his way.
Right.
And he must have loved that song.
Well, Robin Thicke, he in the interview.
Pharrell, I'm talking about.
No,
he must have loved the Marvin song.
Yeah, but
to make the beat similar. But I don't hear. Actually, you can hear a sample. If your ear is good, you'll hear a sample in a beat. He did not sample the song, but he used the idea. But you still have to, I guess, get permission, even if you interpret the idea and make it your way. You still got
a gray area, though, man. It's so gray
because it was the Marvin record that inspired you to make the beat the way you made it.
Yes, I mean, and what does that mean for sampling? If there's such that gray area is right there, does that scare you? Like when you produce, when you wanna, I mean, does that give you a funny feeling? Do you feel like maybe I'm leaving?
Now it does because of how they clamp down on it so much.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But to me, it's a breath of fresh air when you find a good sample and that people don't know about, and you're like, wow, look, what was that guy thinking about playing the Fender Rhodes like that, or playing the guitar like that, or a bass line or something? What was they thinking about? And people don't know about that unless we, the producers, find it and give it back to them.
JAIA, your feeling on this pending case?
Good question. So actually, when the whole lawsuit came out, I was actually back home. I'm originally from Cincinnati. And I was back home in Cincinnati visiting my parents. And my dad, he worked in the radio business for 25 years. He owned black radio stations that played classic oldies. So he played music like Marvin Gaye, James Brown, the OJs, all those type of artists. And I played him both songs. And the minute I played him the Robin Thicke song, he knew right away it was Marvin Gaye's song. Which I thought was interesting, and I completely agreed with him. I think that Robin Thicke definitely sampled Marvin Gaye's song, and I think he should compensate the Gaye family. I heard that Robin Thicke did offer them a 6-figure settlement, and they refused it. They said no thanks. But yeah, I mean.
Crumbs.
Yeah,
they were like,
they turned it down. They said no, thank you. But I definitely think Robin Thicke sampled the music, and he should properly compensate the Gaye family. I think it's almost disrespectful for him to have even filed that lawsuit in the first place. But
yeah, he did have what they call, I guess, a preemptive legal strike because he heard about what the Gaye family was going to do. But
so he wanted a judge off the bat to just rule that no, it was not a sample.
Right.
But it is.
But from a producer standpoint, Judah, it's really not a sample, right? They kind of just recreated and channeled the vibe of that song.
Right. He didn't sample anything off the vinyl, off the CD, off the masters. He didn't sample anything. He found the instruments that they used and used it in the exact same way or similar to how they used it on a Marvin Gaye record. That if you listen to Robin Thicke's record, it's in a whole nother key, another chord. It's completely different in terms of the musical composition and the architecture. But in terms of the inspiration, they probably took the inspiration. They say, oh, I want something with this tempo. I want something with this energy. I want something with this. That's not physically putting the needle on a record, sampling it into an MPC and looping it.
Right.
So it's a little different there. But I'm also confused at how they're having this whole big issue. And then when I went to the Marvin Gaye play that was here in D.C., his sister said, "Oh, Motown, Berry Gordy wouldn't even let us use the music for the play." So I'm confused as to who is it coming from? How is this whole situation happening?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the play, she said they wouldn't even license our brother's music to us to play.
You're talking about Ziola Gay.
Yes, at the play.
So what you're probably saying is, so that sends us the signal, really, that the Gay family probably doesn't even own the publishing of those songs. It's probably owned by the label.
Something is not right, point blank. Something is not right in that situation, or whatever the case may be. So I'm confused at that. But once again, they got the inspiration from the record. They didn't sample it. They got the inspiration.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Say I dig in the crates, and I'm shopping over at George's record store, and I find a 12-inch single of your record, Sunglasses and Sandals.
Mm-hmm.
And Sundresses and Sandals. Your song. Right. And I'm producing a record. Mm-hmm. And I don't sample your song. Mm-hmm. But I produce something similar to that has the same kind of vibe. Mm-hmm. And I make $10 million off that record. Mm-hmm. Through sales of some little maybe new type of an iPod or maybe some type of electrical gadget. You see it in the commercials, and I have the girls dancing to your song. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you should get paid any of that money?
I'm not going to say they sampled it. I'm going to say, hey, that sounds like my song. Hey, my attorney, what can you do for me?
I'm going to come see you.
Do you think I got a case? Do I not have a case? Do you think I have a case? But I'm not going to be like, hey, you sampled my song. You did this and you did that. I'm not going to do that because clearly the words were not the same. The key of the song, all those elements were not the same, but the energy, the tempo, the movement of it was the same. Mm-hmm. So, at the end of the day, that's what it is. But mysteriously, I don't know if anybody else noticed, but I haven't heard Blurry Lines on the radio in a long time.
I still hear it.
I haven't heard it here.
Well, it did die down a little bit. I mean, it's lost its zing, but the shelf life of a lot of records nowadays is not very long.
Plus, I think Blurred Lines was more like a summertime cookout family reunion. Mm-hmm. Now that we out of that season, it seems like it's just not.
The lines are getting blurred.
Yeah.
Exactly. Go ahead. You had a comment. Go ahead, Jaya. You had a comment.
I think you asked the question that I wanted to ask him about. If he was in the same situation, whether or not he would feel like he needs to be compensated. So, good question, Easy.
So, what do you think about his response?
I'm not an artist, so, it's hard for me to say. My thing is, if you're breaking the law, you should be, pretty much. Or have to pay. or have to pay.
You going to jail. Look at Judah's face.
Or have to pay the proper fines. I just think the Robin Gaye, why do I keep saying that? The Robin Thicke situation, I definitely think he did sample, though. That's my personal opinion.
Well, what is the true definition of a sample?
Right.
Because it seems like, Judy, your face, it seems like it's some discrepancies.
It's a gray area.
Actually, does it qualify as a sample?
Judah, please break it down. It's very simple. It's very simple. Go ahead, Judah.
I take a record, piece of vinyl, a CD, an MP3, a wave, and I put it into my machine that I make beats on. And I make like a snapshot or record it into my actual equipment, and I've sampled it at that point. Mm-hmm. So I didn't. That's like me taking, you sing a 4-bar loop, and I sample your voice and put it in my machine and make music out of it that way. Okay. But they didn't do that with that song.
Oh, okay.
Pharrell played every instrument. You know what I'm saying? So he didn't physically sample it.
So, but if he used the same, like the note arrangement and the melodies are the same, even if he plays it himself and he uses an organ versus a piano, but it's the same melody, then it's not a sample.
That's not sampling. But Camille is upset because she done pulled out her iPhone and went on YouTube and played a song for us.
My iPod.
What was that you played?
I played Blurred Lines, and then I put it up against Got to Give It Up.
Right.
To see if we could hear. I mean, and you can hear it. It's
same
pervasive.
tempo,
I
the same
understand.
percussion.
Judah and I have been going back and forth about this.
But he did not sample.
I understand. It's semantics. I get it. But my question to JAIA with regard to that, now that we have clarified exactly what qualifies as a sample, is there still a copyright law that addresses the issue of inspiration or using something based on someone else's work? I believe that it is.
Yeah, there are portions of the copyright law where it can constitute infringement. Depending on the works. And a lot of this stuff is always kind of up for interpretation. You know, it's usually always up for a judge to interpret, you know, whether or not it really was based on something or, you know, along those lines. So sometimes there's not always a bright line rule. A lot of times, you know, it's just kind of based on the judges.
So what would a judge in a courtroom who's hearing this case, what would a judge be looking at because clearly you can hear a similarity. Judah, I
guess only you can hear it. He can't hear it.
I said a similarity.
Ooh, shade.
Judah's caught in the middle here between two determined ladies. So clearly, I will say you hear a similarity in
Correct.
fairness in the music and the tempo and all of that. So if a judge were hearing this case today, what would they be looking at to determine whether or not Marvin Gaye's family is due any compensation? What would determine that?
You know, and it's a lot of the factors you were just, you know, already listed. It would be the tempo, the beat, you know, it's a lot of the factors you just kind of already went over. Okay. And the judge will be making a decision soon in regards to that.
I cannot wait to see what happens because
I love this.
It's going to change.
Like reality TV almost.
That is our show. Judah is looking so puzzled right now as a producer. And I mean, I feel your pain because I'm a fan of sampling. I am. I love sampling. I love break beats. I can listen to break beats all day long. Okay, he got this from that. She got this from that. I can listen to that all day long. However, I think that the artist should be compensated for their work because there is a long history of exploitation of African American artists who never got their just due, who never got the money that they deserve off of their soul. They produced this music from their soul. And as far as I'm concerned, when you don't pay for that, you're robbing somebody's soul. Thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of the Street Report Podcast. I am Easy Street. You can follow me at Easy Street on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. My official website is EasyStreetShow.com. Want to remind you, the Street Report Podcast is being brought to you by JAIA Multimedia, specializing in producing podcasts just like this. We create social media strategies for companies, and we also produce video ads for social media for all you business owners out there. Our website is JAIAMultimedia.com. That's CYA Multimedia.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at JAIA Multimedia. Making sure all eyes are on you. Keep that third eye open. One love. Peace. Thanks for rolling with the brother.